Hello, my name is Dr. Brian Henning. I'm professor of philosophy and environmental studies at Gonzaga University, where I direct our Center for Climate, Society, and the Environment. And I'm very happy to also introduce my colleague, Corrina Farho. You can introduce yourself, Corrina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Corrina. I am an AmeriCorps Civic Spark Fellow at the Gonzaga Center for Climate, Society, and the Environment at the Climate Resilience Project.
Really glad you were able to tune in to our presentation here. We have a nice type presentation to share with you a little bit of information about work we've been doing related to climate resilience and how it might affect, in particular, businesses in the Inland Northwest. So let's go ahead and get started. Quick bit first about the Climate Center. The Climate Center was launched in 2021 in order to respond and understand the urgency of the changing climate and how we can prepare in the Inland Northwest. This presentation is going to be about resilience, in particular climate and community resilience. As you can see in this quotation from the director of the Urban Sustainability Network, resilience is something we should be pursuing all year round. It doesn't just involve when we have a terrible disaster, but it involves making our community so that it's able to be resilient and everyone can thrive. This is something that's really important, as we're going to find, to the Greater Spokane Incorporated's Thrive Spokane process as well. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about those economic costs and opportunities of pursuing a climate resilient community. I'd like to begin by noting a number of connections between the work at the Climate Center and economic opportunities that are embodied in the Greater Spokane Incorporated's Thrive Spokane plan. So what we've done is go through that plan and look at a number of different places where goals in that plan intersect with climate resilience. In this one, you see that we're interested as a community in targeting efforts that prepare our region to avoid, withstand, recover the economic shocks from natural disasters. We know that our community, we are increasingly having wildfire smoke, extreme heat events, and many other hazards that are affecting our community and affecting businesses' ability to sustain themselves. So preparing for these events ahead of time can help ensure that the community stays healthy and businesses are able to thrive as well. In particular, goal 1.6 mentions addressing climate change resilience by modernizing infrastructure systems to withstand disruption, improve efficiency, and enhance connectivity. These can be done in a number of different ways the Climate Center is helping to pursue. For example, creating community assets that can become what are called resilience hubs, making green infrastructure to be able to be more able to withstand extreme heat events, and pursuing green-collar jobs that are career opportunities for a number of our community members. As we'll discuss, these involve not only economic costs, but also significant economic opportunities. In Thrive Spokane goal number 2, it mentions competitiveness, specifically wanting to position the Greater Spokane region as a strong competitor to attract the talent, capital, and resources for strategic economic development. If we're going to be a community that is not just going to be catching up or trying to be able to withstand the next disaster, but rather one that's going to be able to thrive in every part of our community at every level in the 21st century, we need to be able to attract the businesses and the talent that are going to be able to thrive in the 21st century. This involves pursuing green infrastructure and green jobs. We need to be able to show that as a community, we're ready for what comes as the climate changes. There are a number of large companies who won't even consider moving to a region if it's not clear that they know what they're doing, they understand the challenges that climate change presents, and they're making concrete plans to address those. This is going to attract the capital and the talent that we need to be a thriving economic and healthy community. In goal 3 in the Thrive Spokane plan, it mentions equitable growth, specifically seeking to understand, address, and dismantle outcome disparity through intentional initiatives that include all Spokane residents and the benefits of economic growth and prosperity. This is something that's central to our work at the Gonzaga Climate Center as well. In fact, we've been publishing some new research related to the intersections of extreme heat and some of the community members who are disproportionately affected by that heat. And we'll talk about that very shortly. This is really, really important when you think about having a community that's going to be equitable and that's going to work for everyone. We need to make sure that nobody's left behind. Frequently, we talk about the idea of a just transition. I think that's part of this idea of equitable growth as well. If we're going to transition to a new economy that's built on clean energy, We need to make sure that no one is left behind. Everybody needs to have a way of feeding their family and having a healthy life. And so this idea of equitable growth is something we need to keep central to our work together. And finally, in goal 4, regarding connectivity, Thrive Spokane mentions promoting the interconnectedness of Greater Spokane and drive cross-sector partnerships to align efforts that advance economic opportunity for all. Obviously, no one can tackle the challenges that our community faces by themselves. One of the things that we really are interested in at the Climate Center is helping community members connect across these divides. So we're bringing together community-based organizations, citizens and community members and residents, as well as business partners and municipal partners to be able to work together on these hard challenges that we face. Let's now talk a little bit about one of the hazards that we found that is increasingly facing the inland Northwest and how we can use this as an example of applying Thrive Spokane as it relates to climate change in our community. You might remember that in 2021, we had the Northwest Heat Dome. This impacted Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, Idaho, really severely. In Washington state, we had 157 heat-related deaths in Washington, 19 of those in Spokane County. This really severe event was the first of its kind. We really didn't ever have an event where it affected such a large geographical region and so with such intense daytime and evening temperatures that some community members perished. The 19 deaths directly attributed to the heat dome are almost certainly an underreporting, as if you look at the excess mortality rates, we find that it's likely that there were not just 157 deaths directly ascribed to the heat deaths in Washington, but actually 700 deaths are more likely that during that period, 700 people died than you would normally have expected, even controlling for COVID. So we know that a great number of people were affected. As you can see, there was also not just the number of people who died, but many, many people went to the emergency department of the hospital seeking assistance for heat-related illness symptoms. So this affects not just people who are unhoused, but seniors, pregnant people, people who have to work outside, children who want to recreate outside. So extreme heat is something that affects people of all walks of life, especially those who are low income and don't have always the means to cool off some of their living space. The heat dome in 2021 was really a wake-up call for our region, much like the 2015 smoke season was a wake-up call for our region when we learned about the idea of having a smoke season. Extreme heat is similar. But it's probably not wise to think of this as just a single isolated event. If we put it in context, we realize that in fact, this is going to likely increase in the occurrence of these big events. This shows a 40-year mean temperature of the maximum temperatures in Spokane. The main thing to note is this line that goes through the middle of the annual temperatures. We can see the slope of that line indicates we've already had an increase in the summer maximum temperatures across time. We know, in fact, that looking into the future, depending on what we do, we're going to either have even higher maximum temperatures during the summer, right? Or start to moderate. This blue line is what the future might hold if we take climate change seriously and begin making concrete plans to reduce climate pollution. The red line shows what would likely happen if we continue on a business as usual and we don't reduce climate pollution enough. Either way, it's likely that we're going to continue to have extreme heat events. So it's really important that we pursue actions in our community so we are prepared, again, so that everybody in our community can thrive.
And we know that our response to climate change takes time, and we'll really only have a short window to act. There are a multitude of impacts that come with not responding to the impacts of climate change, whether that be public health issues, lack of response times when disaster strikes, and even economic hardships. There are economic costs to not acting as soon as possible. So today, I will really only just scratch the surface of what local economic impacts might be to our area. Some possible costs of inaction include reduced labor productivity, tourism, infrastructure, wildfires, and agriculture. According to the Adrian Arsht Rockefeller Foundation Resilience Center, if we do not take steps to reduce emissions or adapt to extreme heat, labor productivity losses could double to almost $200 billion by 2030 in only 7 years and reach $500 billion annually by 2050. And if you live in Spokane, you know that Bloomsday and Hoop Fest are only a couple of the major events that take place each year in the area. I mean, the traffic and the road closures alone tell you how big these events are. They are also very important to the local Spokane economy, too. The 2004 direct economic impact of Bloomsday is $9.5 million, and the 2017 equivalent is approximately $12.1 million. Hoopfest contributes a whopping $48 million of economic impact to the Spokane community. So if any of these events were to get canceled due to events like extreme heat, there would be a major hit to their contribution to our local economy. During a hot day, you might experience your energy being turned off and you can't cool your residence. We have seen this happen throughout Spokane in our history. Brownouts like these will become more frequent as our energy grid is just not equipped to handle major surges and demands of energy when everyone is attempting to use their air conditioning units, fans, gadgets, and gizmos all at once, especially during hotter days. Extreme heat events and even wildfire conditions can trigger shutoffs to our local energy grid, given the risk of overheating and destruction to power plant operations and energy transmission. And something that we often forget is the impact of extreme heat, landslides, and other natural disasters have on our transportation infrastructure. Even the Washington State Department of Transportation shared a photo of a road that began to buckle during the heat dome in 2021 near Everson, Washington. Our current materials and infrastructure are just not engineered to handle such extreme changes to their environment. And these events come at a cost to our local communities, both in terms of safety, infrastructure repair costs, and even lack of confidence in transit. Wildfires are close to home for us. They present multiple risks to companies, including physical and productivity loss, supply chain disruption, whether it be challenges to transportation, resource shortages, legal liabilities, and employee health, especially as not all people have access to clean air spaces. Spokane County's agricultural sector will continue to be severely impacted by events such as extreme heat, wildfire, and droughts. And wildfire and droughts are often increased by extreme heat events, where heat waves increase the chances of livestock experiencing heat stress, especially when nighttime temperatures remain high and animals are really unable to cool off. Plants are also affected by high temperatures. Now, heat-stressed cattle experience decline in milk production, slower growth, and reduced conception rates. Spokane County agriculture provides 1,576 jobs, 2,500 farms, which is the second highest number of farms in Washington state, and $117 million in annual economic impact, which is practically double the economic impact of both Bloomsday and Hoopfest combined. I hope this gives a small glimpse into the insight into how our community is impacted by not fostering adaptation, mitigation, and climate resilience strategies. So with that being said, we've got some actions to take and plans to make. We can start by transforming existing frameworks for city climate resilience planning to include and collaborate with business leaders to greater evaluate the threats that their businesses face due to extreme events that hit our economies hard. We know that businesses form the backbone of our communities, and without partnering them to identify resilient strategies together, we are creating greater economic risk for the community. And while there's a lot of uncertainty about the extent in which these climate events will transpire over the coming years and decades, Leading companies are recognizing that waiting to act can be a costly response given what we know now about the anticipated risks associated with the projected impacts of climate change. A few interventions that we can take almost immediately are investing in green infrastructure for both long-term savings and locally felt benefits, and offering opportunities for green-collar jobs in our local job market. Infrastructure investments such as transitioning to cool roofing can be 50 to 60 degrees cooler than traditional materials, or planting trees can reduce surface temperatures by up to 35 degrees, while reducing summer air temperatures in their vicinity from 2 to 9 degrees. And when we use dark paving materials, 80 to 90% of sunlight is absorbed, making our roads and our parking lots scorching. There has been a 13% increase in the cooling load for a typical urban building due to urban heat islands. So at this point, you might be wondering about the costs of making these improvements. Given the influx in federal funding and investments for resilience strategies, infrastructure improvements, and other adaptation mechanisms, these retrofits are actually within reach for many businesses. 225 of the world's 500 biggest companies reported climate-related opportunities represented potential financial impacts totaling over $2.1 trillion. The total value of these opportunities is 6,730 times higher than the cost to realize these opportunities. This can show up by collaborating with local academic institutions and businesses to build the local green-collar job economy through certificate programs or trainings, green apprenticeships, and even skills transition opportunities for various career sectors. This can expand the community's ability to navigate worker shortages to realize climate adaptation and mitigation measures, while also investing in fostering local climate resiliency. We can navigate the economic challenges that our community will face ahead together to bolster a resilient local community and economy.
Thank you so much, Corrina. It's been really great working with you on this project to learn about how we can be better prepared as a community and that some of the economic opportunities that this involves. As impactful as the 2020 heat dome was, and as impactful as the regular smoke that clouds our skies in the summer, it will be likely that Spokane is going to see more of an influx of climate migration than an outflow. We're in a region which is really fortunate to be farther north, and although we'll be significantly impacted, we really have a wonderfully large aquifer. And there's a lot of reasons to believe that Spokane's future is bright, but we're not going to be able to pursue all of the different opportunities for our community if we don't demonstrate to businesses and corporations, both local and national, that we're prepared to be able to thrive and to be resilient to the changes that are coming. And so it's really, really important that we look at these opportunities and we begin making plans now. We appreciate your attending this and watching this video. To learn a little bit more, you can go to any of the URLs on your screen, and you might pause it now and consider going to this QR to join our email list so you're notified of future work that the Climate Center is doing. We exist to help the Inland Northwest to understand and respond to a changing climate. And so we would love your feedback if you have ideas for how we can do that or how we might partner together with you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at a Climate Center event again in the future.